All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here because I have a lot to get through, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this. It'll be hopefully a rather unique one. So let's make sure I'm doing this slide stuff right. So hi, my name's Rich. I'm actually the CTO of a company here in town called El Toro. I'm really here to kind of give you some perspective on life, some advice. Hopefully I'll just entertain you. Maybe I will only entertain you. We'll kind of see how it goes as it goes through. To give you a moment on what I do for a living as CTO, I've got about 70 developers on my team. We work in a digital advertising technology. But what I'm talking about here is kind of something different. It's not about what I do for a living. It's not about what I do in my side job. It's about life. Okay, it's the theory. So I believe we all live in an infinite game, and it requires us to have an infinite mindset as people and as leaders to succeed in what's coming in the future, right? We need to stop thinking about who wins and who is the best and participation trophies, and start thinking about how to build strong, healthy approaches that are going to survive the test of time. And unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of business owners, a lot of employees, a lot of us don't always remember those things in life. And so some of the topics I want to break down and kind of go over is, what is a just cause? Why is a just cause not considered a why? What is an infinite game versus a finite game? Some of you may have not heard those phrases. I want to go over those kind of a little quick to make sure you know the perspective I'm talking about. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit about how it applies to life itself, business, kind of everything in between. And I'll give you the caveat. I believe these are all my personal opinions in life that I've adopted. Take it for what it's worth. There are lots and lots of people who have this mindset, some incredible books out there. I'll mention a couple at some point. And understanding how to get to the right mindset, I believe, is really important to become successful. So some of the basic concepts I think you need to know before I get too far into some of these weeds is, what is a just cause? A just cause is what gives our work meaning, gives us meaning as people, gives our companies meanings to succeed and get to the next generation. It's in the world we hope to build what inspires us to keep playing the infinite game. All right? A just cause is something that is positive for all, that is open for everyone to contribute to. It's inclusive, right? It's built around the approach that other people benefit from it, that it can endure the test of time, that it is big, bold, and ultimately unachievable. That to me is a just cause. It's, in other words, to say it is, what is your vision of the future? Where do you aim your ship? Where are you going in this direction? Not where's the land you're going to hit tomorrow. Where are you going in life with this? What is the goal at the end of this trail, assuming you could ever hit it, which you can't? So what a just cause is not, this is another important variable. It's not your why. It's not your origin, where you came from. It's not your values and your beliefs, okay? The just cause is where you're aiming. Your why, which is also very important, is how you got to where you are and why you're doing it, okay? I'm going to kind of sidetrack from the core of this topic of existential flexibility, which I know is a bunch of big words, but because I really want to talk about this one. Writing down your why and your just cause are super important. Incredibly important. So I want to give you a story. So many years ago, this is done and it's been replicated over and over, but they did a Stanford study of graduating class, and they went to every student and said, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 20 years? Okay. I believe it was 85% of the class said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. 10% of the class said, I'm going to do this, this, and this. 5% of the class pulled out a piece of paper and said, here's what I'm going to do. Right? Here's my 5-year plan. Here's my 10-year plan. Here's my 20-year plan. Here's my life plan. Now they went back to those same students 20 years later. The 5% of the class that had those goals and had that vision, right, that had that just cause, that ideal written down, they understood their why, they understood their just cause, they controlled 95% of the wealth of that class. And there's lots of studies in the same one. Harvard Business study found that 3% of graduates from their MBA who had their goals written down earned as much as 10 times more than the other 97% put together. So my sidetrack from this conversation is some of these things I'm talking about require you to write them down, because writing them down gives you a commitment and something to continue to follow. Okay, statistics don't lie. Strong arguments across the board. Google the heck out of it. You'll see that I'm not making this one up at all. It's not a personal opinion, it's a statistic. Keeping your goals, your why, your just cause, understanding those things is important. We'll get back to the meat. So what is existential flexibility? Some of you probably don't know why you're here, so we're going to try and fix that. Okay, I'm going to try and explain what these things are. Existential flexibility. And this is a definition, you can read it in a book from Simon Sinek that talks about the infinite game. The ability of an infinite-minded leader to initiate a disruption or a strategy or a business model in order to advance a just cause. Okay, that's important. The ability of an infinite-minded leader to initiate a disruption to a strategy or business model in order to advance a just cause. Are you on the right track and putting the right people with you in that right track and helping lead the right people for the right reasons? It's important, okay? Why is this an important topic? Survival. Survival in business, survival in life, survival in a family, survival in everything you're doing, okay? It's the ability to remain relevant through the markets, through the centuries, the test of time, right? If you're not looking at the perspective of how to get from A to an infinite Z, then you're only going to get to D, right? So some topics. If you look at a history of business, and you can kind of see if you agree with any of this thinking I have, most of you will. There are companies that go, we don't need to change. We're making our money doing this. We don't want to do that new thing. Be flexible, make small changes over time. And there's some who don't. Take Kodak. They were in the business of manufacturing and providing film material. They were doing the development, physical pieces of paper, all the development, all of the business. Kodak had digital photography invented 10 years before anyone else did. They had the patents, right? But they didn't want to do that. They were making their bread and butter in paper. 10 years after digital photography became a thing, they were licensing their patents. Once that stopped, 2 years they were out of business. Now they're not really out of business. They've changed. Kind of a longer topic on that one. But take an Apple. Had they continued to play the infinite game well? You look at, there's a lot of stories and lots of stories, and someone and I were talking about this last night, and so now this one I can't get out of my head. If you look at Apple, Apple spent millions of dollars, ungodly number of hours of development time across massive infrastructure to try and build a new UI, right? This is early in the game at iPhone and even earlier, looking at the Mac side, right? And Jobs went to Xerox. So they literally, at his visit of Xerox, he saw the GUI that Xerox was doing. And he literally went back and scrapped that entire project, says we have to build a better UI. I'd rather kill this now than let our competition kill the company. He understood the idea of infinite game. Do it right. Get it forward. Take the hits as you go. Keep moving that business forward. And they've continually done those things. Product after product after product. iPod, greatest thing. They're making millions and millions of dollars, and suddenly there's a better way. Let's move it into this. Kill that product off. We have to continually be evolving to understand how to survive, right? Or it'll kill a company overnight. So what is a finite game? Kind of an important thing since I'm talking about infinite game a whole lot here. A finite game is where all of the players of the game are known. The rules are fixed. You have an agreed upon objective. The game ends with a winner often being declared. Think of an easy way to look at it as football or chess. These are games where they have a set of rules. Somebody's going to win. It makes it a finite game, right? So therefore, on the opposite side, what is an infinite game? An infinite game is where the players are both known and unknown, right? There are no exact rules. The length of play is potentially infinite. There technically is no winning or losing, right? You're just either on this track or not. You might go out of business and call it a loss. It's just part of the infinite game. But the objective of this game is to keep playing. That's what an infinite game is. That's it. Most of us look at it as life. Life itself is a massive infinite game, right? Politics, an infinite game. Politicians are constantly trying to figure out how to get to the top and what's the next thing, and they're looking ahead or not, and politicians also come and go. Understanding business. Business is an infinite game. There is no winning as a business. Yes, Apple's rated it $2 trillion or some obscene number in the stock market today, right? But can they win? No. It's possible next month the next product comes out and Apple goes out of business, right? There's new things going on that are always part of that infinite game because there's always new things coming into the market set, and it's probably someone Apple doesn't know about. Puts the entire Apple at risk. Take MySpace. Did MySpace think Facebook was a competitor? Did MySpace evolve? Facebook came along. MySpace wasn't doing. It was going. Someone asked a question that's an interesting one. Is a finite game synonymous to a zero-sum game, or are there nuanced differences? Zara, remind me to that at the end because I'd love to go into that. There are some nuanced differences, but there's a lot of similarities that a lot of people are doing. A zero-sum game can actually be part of an infinite game that's consistently doing it. Sometimes it's a finite game, so there's some new big nuances there that require more variables. I'll happily go into that. That's an interesting question. All right. So in the infinite game, competition ends for an opponent when they lack the will or resources to continue. So that's kind of an interesting perspective to look at things. If you understand when you lack the will or resources to continue is kind of the only way to get out of an infinite game. It's like giving your hands up or you run out of money, right? Otherwise, you're still back trying again. All right, an unfortunate trend we're seeing in the business world today, okay, really kind of since the 80s is what's known as shareholder primacy. All right, leaders sacrificing long-term health of their company for maximum shareholder profits today, right? It makes sense when you study it. Board members seem more and more impatient. They tend to look at the CEO and go, what have you done for me lately? They have that mindset. It's wrong, laying off people, causing bad morale, poor employee health, and thus service to a customer. It kind of gets affected by the whole thing. It's a challenge. And companies today, tomorrow are constantly going in this. And oftentimes the leaders are fighting back against the shareholders. Great. That's the point. We've got to keep these things going forward. Kind of going further on it, when you look at it, a shareholder primacy gives you things, early wins and negative long-term consequences, right? Now they happen everywhere, not just in business. A lot of us look at that really hard, really early. It's an easy one to talk about. Let's look at some other spots. Sports. A team's success determines its relevance. Look at every sports game. If you follow football or soccer or baseball, when they win, they have everyone's attention. When they lose, they're quickly forgotten and no longer in the play. The next team is at the top. The next team is at the top. This is part of the same thing. Look at us personally. We want instant results to justify the increase in effort we have to put in. We set outcome goals and we work hard to see it happen quickly. What can I get done this week, this month, this quarter? Right? We're only looking at those things. We're in the very short-minded aspect and we're not looking farther down the road. This kind of thinking is what sets a lot of people up for failure. Only with a goal that we will never meet can we sustain effort through the entire path. When I owned a haunted house for a very long time, I still own one. And one of the things we taught our people, it's not about giving it 100% every single second. It's about giving it 90% consistently every single day. I'd be happier with 80% consistently every single day than I would with 120, 120, 127, 10, 20, 80, 107, right? It's not consistent. You're ruining your own past. You lose the resources. You know, they lax. Your willpower wanes as you go through it. But when you truly have a just cause and you're maintaining a consistent level of effort as you go through it, the person and the people and the lives can persevere through that approach. So how? Okay, how can we actually do those things? Sacrificing long-term success for the now. Extra effort for now isn't likely to remain past the goal. You work really hard. You put in 120 hours this week out of the 168 ever possible this week. And you work on your goal, you finish it. You've made, your boss happy, or you've made your spouse happy, or you're happy you solved the problem. Now, what happens with that is that's great. You probably gained a little experience. That's wonderful. But next week, you're not going to do it again, right? And 3 weeks from now, you're not going to do it again. You're basically falling back into the habit that's not causing you that success. Right, those old routines are coming back to haunt you because you're still on the wrong approach. You're not on this constant approach, right? Growth experienced is transient, right? If that makes sense to you, you've got to get consistent growth as you're going through. When we're striving to hit the goal, there are 3 strategies that come into play. You've all read this, kind of giggled and laughed. You saw the little meme that popped out in the world. There are 3 things: quick, easy, or effective. You can only have 2. I say that even to my boss, and it's not a joke. You can't have all 3, quick, easy, and effective. You can have it easy and effective, but that's not quick. You can have it quick and easy, but that's not effective, right? I love this chart. It's the very easy what you can have and what you can't have. You can have it quick and easy. That's cool. That makes it not effective. If I want something done today, I can write you a quick script with 1 line of code and bang, it'll do that thing. But that 1 line of code will be out of date in 2 months. Right? It probably gets retired and a cron job's broken for life, right? I could make it easy and effective. It'll take me a little longer to write the right code, but it's going to keep going, thereby not quick. I could make it quick and effective, but that's not easy, right? These combinations all really, really apply to life. Short bursts of work can be very effective. If we decide to want to take it easy and also have it quick, then it's not effective. It leads us to an eventual failure. Maybe not in the thing you're doing today, right? You might have an experience to be able to pull it off, but it is an eventual failure. We've seen it over and over and over again. It might be a burnout of somebody, and you've kind of lost your will to keep doing that industry, right? I'm in IT. I've been through burnout a couple times because I can work really hard and then I'm going to burn out and go do something else, right? So I found things to help me compensate for that in life, and I've given other speeches on this, or happy to have conversations with people about it. We want it now, but we don't understand that having it now and being effective means it won't be easy. These tasks are so hard. One of the challenges a lot of leaders and a lot of business dudes have is deadline-driven development. Understanding that I've got to have this next week, right? Let's face it. In business, that happens, right? You've got to launch something for a customer. You've got to do these right things. So I understand deadlines in business. I have to keep my team with some of those. I have them, right? But I now understand the penalty of doing that. I need to make sure the approach to doing that is fine, and we commit the time afterwards to keep and make it effective. I know with the deadline-driven development, 3 hard words, I can get it quick, right? And I can get it easy. I can get it quick and I can get it effective, but that's not easy. I know I have to pattern these, and if I've skipped one of these things, I've got to go back and fix it, right? So even though I made the deadline and launched it to the customer, that product is not done. We're going to have to spend a few more weeks and actually make it effective under the hood and keep it going. So there is another way. right? It's a shift in thinking that requires kind of all levels to be involved. And if your boss doesn't believe this theory, you should be doing it yourself, okay? It requires a shift in thinking from short-term to long-term. It's focusing on solutions, the end goal, the way to do it right, creating lots of small, easy improvements in your own life. You know, it's a very effective way to do because we eliminate quick. Improving the systems and the habits around the goals we're doing allow us to create these easy improvements. Then we can build and grow those improvements after they become habits, right? You've got to have the right habits. You've seen it work in business, right? Focusing on improving processes and procedures on a company. This is often a very painful thing to see and to watch. I'm in the middle of things with this right now, and it's painful. I'm working on improving the processes, improving the procedures, the how we do things, right? And trying to build those things as a habit for all of the people so that because it's a goal they can't really see, and I need to make sure these things are in place. You know, looking in sports, focusing on fundamentals, right? You don't hear about the next, you know, basketball star or golf star, right, of today, because the person who's the next, you know, winner of whatever the championship thing is that's going on in that sport, today, 5 years ago, they were in their backyard just swinging 12 hours a day. They're working on the fundamentals of how the heck I hit the ball. You don't hear about those, okay? They're working toward a goal that they spend big chunks of their life trying to become the best at what they do, and they may never be. And you don't hear about those people. You don't hear about the effort that it got there, and God forbid they made it. Everyone goes, man, they're lucky. No, they spent 20 years out hitting that ball in their backyard when nobody cared, right? But those fundamentals are important to the success of anything. If you're a developer, if you're a project manager, if you're a team leader, if you're, you know, a software developer, if you work in healthcare, pick an industry, understanding the fundamentals to become successful at what you want to do with a goal you may never see is what helps you see that goal, okay? People and society ignore everything until we start to see their success. Then suddenly everyone takes notice. And they don't remember the journey it took to get there, right? You've got guys like Elon Musk who are in the news and everyone's taking notice. He's going into outer space. Nobody sees the years he spent grueling hours, right, doing it. They're only seeing the results and say, oh, he just had money. That's not true. He worked his ass off early on to help build some money. Excuse my French, happens. You should see me in person. You know, you don't see Tiger Woods. No one recognizes Tiger Woods till he comes out and has some success at it, right? But he was working hours, days, months, years to get to that point so that it could be done, because that journey is part of the value of it, right? You can't be short-sighted. Right? A lot of this all talk is understanding the short-sightedness of some of the decisions and the approaches people take in things, right? Understanding to sacrifice some things today, which often can also be painful for the long-term success of where you're going, right? I talked about writing down your goals, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, right? I've had these written down. I revise them every year or so. Since I was about 16, because someone sat me down, maybe it was 18, sat me down and made me write them. And I didn't understand the benefit of that till many years later. You know, I've read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People for about 20 years now. I read it every year. I get one nugget out of it every year, right? Consistently going through these things. And every year that's one of the books I just read, part of my own little habit. I go over my goals and make sure I'm on them. And these goals I don't share with people. And I don't carry them on me. I have them in a digital format today. The handwritten ones I still have in my safe. And I go pull them out once a year and look at them and put them away. It's for me, right? I'm making sure that what I'm doing this month, this quarter, this year is on the right goal that I may never obtain. I'm trying very hard not to be short-sighted, even though some of those things are going to come up. I get that, right? So how do we apply some of these concepts in life? Work harder without extra effort by continually improving the processes you're doing. Every little thing, every day, as you're going through the work, as you're going through how to develop something, how to build something, right? Continually understand how to make some of these processes better. What are you doing wrong? Go learn a new bit of code, go understand a function a little farther in deep, get the grasp of something, right? You know, if you're a PM, keep taking another class on PM. Understand other ways to PM that you're not using or your company's not using, so you get concept and vision, right? Try and build the process for you to do what you do. If it's as a family and you as a family want to move out to, you know, a beach one day, cool. What will it take to get there? And build the plan and continually do little things along that approach to get to that goal, right? You know, focusing on our vision and always enhancing the right habits, we start to work harder. Like that's a big sentence out of this, because it means a lot to me. By focusing on our vision and always enhancing the right habits, we start to work harder. But we do this without the effort and feeling like we're being overwhelmed. It's not necessarily putting in more hours in a day. It's not necessarily, although that often happens starting something new, but it's not increasing the amount of effort and work and brain power, but suddenly you're working harder. Feels like we're making lots of fewer small adjustments, and we're just continually changing, continually adding new pieces to the puzzle. I'm a big fan of automation, right? Because if I have to do the same thing over and over again, right, it's insanity. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. But more importantly, if I have to hit that same button again, I'm going to go crazy. How can I make that button hit by itself when a certain thing happens? I'm going to find a way to automate it. There absolutely is a way. And anyone says they can't automate something, I call BS, right? It might require a robot and a physical button push, but it's doable. You know, in code, it's very doable. Like I found a great little bot that automated things, and it controls an Android phone and goes and clicks the buttons as if it was a human. It's a UI testing tool, but it does all the button pushing. Focusing on how to do things better, you know, understanding those habits, every little bit. And if your goal, you know, I ran cloud engineering team for a long time, and if I have to push the same button over and over again, there's a way to automate it. If I can keep automating everything that comes across my lap, I get really, really effective. And anyone who needs anything is like, okay, it'll get taken care of because I know the script's going to do it in 3 minutes, bang, it's fixed, right? And get better and better. So suddenly I could handle more and more and more and more things without actually working harder. You know, I built my knowledge base up to the point that there's very little somebody can stump me on. I'll know one of the paths to try and solve the problem, right? And that's because I spent 20 years grueling, almost going bankrupt, eating ramen noodles, sleeping in my car, trying to figure out how to do these things and building these processes as it goes along in the business, in the world, you know, breaking things. I kind of often say, why am I good at IT? Why am I a CTO? I'm a professional screw up, right? I've broken more things than anyone else. I'm now really good at not breaking things, or really good at figuring out how to fix them when they do break, right? And that is because I spent years learning little things, breaking little things, moving down the process till I could get there. You know, having a finite goal is important. I'm not saying you shouldn't know what to do this week and what to do this month, right? Those having finite goals are important. You know, a sports team, we want to win the championship. That's important, right? You know, that's a goal you can potentially acquire. Right. So I'm not saying it's finite or infinite as a way of approaching, right, you know, understanding how these things work. But if you focus solely on those short-term goals, a finite goal is to me a short-term goal. It's short-sighted, right? It causes a lot of things that work against your reason for doing it, right? The phrasing a lot of use is your just cause. You know, the phrase I myself personally use, I've kind of changed over the past few years to use the phrase just cause, because it's been in a lot of great books and people understand what it means. To me, it's my reason for doing things, right? It's not quite my why, but it's that just cause that I'm trying to do. So I think that's important. Apply the concept in business for the leaders, for the people who work in the corporate space or who own their own business like I do. Don't work in the mindset for today. Work in the mindset 5 years from now. Again, it doesn't mean don't ship the product out that's sitting on the table that needs to get shipped. It means, how do I make sure the products I'm doing are going to work for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? The things I'm learning now are solving the bigger goal we have. You know, there's a lot of things in any business, in any aspect of life that I do today, and I know darn well this is going to be obsolete in 2 years. But I know it's going to be obsolete. So is this, this, and this. And all of these things are going to get me the information I really need for the next step. So I'm working for that next step. I'm working for that next approach down the road. And I consciously know that going in. Well, now my goal is to finish this thing. So finite goals are often part of an infinite process. But do it right. Don't just do it now. Whenever it's necessary and possible. And make sure it's on that approach of that just cause. Right? Always R&D. Always look at something new. Can you imagine if Apple suddenly, at the generation of the iPad, said, man, let's get rid of our R&D team. This iPad is going to make our business for the next 200 years, and they never invented the iPhone. They'd probably be out of business today. Right? They sure as heck wouldn't be in this battle with Epic Games. You know, the technology changes. Always look ahead in some fashion. Right? Don't neglect building the right skills in your teams and yourself that keep going down that road of an infinite game. Because if you're not always getting better in some fashion, then you're becoming obsolete, right? In that approach of getting to life. So being successful in life is not about money. Being successful in life is, to me, here's part of my why. I'll even just go into that for a sec. So part of my way of doing this, someone told me very young, and there's some people who I call mentors in my life, but they really said, you've all heard this, if you feed a man a fish, you will feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. And I agree with that. It's evolved in my head to this. Feed a man a fish, or give a man a fish, feed him for today. Teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. But if I can teach that guy, if I can teach a man to teach people to fish, we can feed an army, right? We can build people around us up that are constantly building. A big part of my why is I want to surround myself with people that are successful and happy in what they're doing, that are on the right goals in life, right? You know, as a leader, I know I'm not successful unless the people I'm with are successful. If they're not, I'm a failure. And in order for me to get that infinite game, doesn't mean things aren't going to happen, right? I'm in that end goal. I want to be 90 years old, surrounded by people that are happy with where their life's been. That's, to me, that's big. That's a hard thing to accomplish. I may never be able to accomplish it. I could also go crazy or fall off a 90-foot ladder. I tend to do stupid things. But that, to me, is the goal. I want to make sure other people are there. It's also kind of bleeds. It's hard for me to describe why and versus my just cause sometimes. You know, a lot of that comes from things that have happened in my life and people I've seen, right? It's given me the understanding of where I'm coming from and why I'm doing this and leading me down that road. I obviously tend to not read my exact just cause and why out of my book because they're for me and most people won't understand my shorthand anyway. But okay, going on. Applying concepts in everything in life. How do you apply the approach of that infinite game to get where you're going? Plan ahead. Don't just plan for tomorrow. Shift your mindset to improving the systems in your mind and build the you of the future with the one little thing you have to do today. Okay? You know, it's if you wrote your 20-year plan out and you break it down to, okay, means I have to do this in the next 5 years. You break it down. This is what it means I have to do in the next year. You break it down. This is what I have to do this month. Break it down. This is what I have to do this week. Right? You know, like if you want to be the best salesman in the world and outsell anyone in the world, okay, what will that take? Let's break it backwards. It means today you got to call 10 people. Tomorrow you got to call 10 people. In order for you to be successful, there's an adage like in sales. They say if you picture a 55-gallon drum and a 1-quart paint can, Okay. The joke a lot of people in sales have said is, to become successful, to make a couple $1 million in sales, I have to fill this paint can with quarters. But in order to fill this paint can with quarters, I have to fill the 55-gallon drum with pennies. Basically, every time you get a no from somebody in sales, you put a penny in the drum. And every time you get a yes, you put a quarter in the can. But you have to get that many no's to get a yes. So if you're planning out, I want to be the best salesman, and you start breaking it down to levels and you apply some goals to it to yourself and you break it down, it means today I have to call 10 people, right? This is something that's easy and accomplishable. I figured out the goal to be the best salesman in the world is an unattainable goal, right? I don't necessarily think it's a great one either, but okay, cool, right? If you're going down a path, you can pick a goal, break it down to, I need to call 10 people today. You can roughly plan out how many people you're talking. You can plan out how long it'll take to fill this drum and do it. You're going to screw up a whole lot. That's what that drum is. You're going to screw up a whole lot. I say I'm a professional screw up. I've done this, right? To fill this paint can. And that's what's getting you do it. You know, if you're doing things as a developer, make sure what you're building will last. And if not, it's not architected correctly, put it on the list that makes sure it is, because sometimes you have a deadline. Right? You got to take a shortcut. Don't leave that shortcut to reside or it won't last. As a family, make goals for the year or for 5 years as a family. Work towards them as a team, right? You don't have to do all of these things alone, right? The infinite game is you and how you're doing it, your business, how it will survive. You know, if you think about a lot of businesses that have been around a very long time, why? Multi-generational businesses, right? They've had to apply a longer term thinking plan and not looking for how much they can make tomorrow, and making sure that what they're making tomorrow is still on the approach that they can make it 50 years from now, because they have 10,000 families that rely on them to make good decisions. And if the business fails in 10 years, all of those people lose their jobs, right? That's part of the infinite game, is making sure the decisions and the processes that you're building are on the right track. So now I know I luckily went through that quickly, and forgive me, I talk quick. I know that. I'll kind of open it up. If you guys have some questions, if you want to put some more stuff in Slack or in the chat session window, I'm more than happy to kind of go over some of these things, talk about it more, whichever you guys would like, and we'll kind of go over things. So let's see if there's any kind of questions, thoughts. You want to go back into zero-sum game? I can talk about that for a few moments, because I know who was it? Zara asked that. So zero-sum game is kind of a little different. It's a lot about the game theory, right, and economic theory. And it's really where each participant's either going to win and get ahead or lose is exactly balanced by the other one. You know, meaning if there's only $1,000 to be made, it's a zero-sum game. One can get 800, one can get 200. You won, they lost. That could transition. It's zero-sum. There is no real. It's the wins of one are offset by the losses of the other. In a finite game, it's win or lose, and it's a little more black and white usually. Okay, and so that finite game. Again, that's why a lot of them are synonymous, and it's a bigger conversation, but the finite game is really you have a winner, okay? The zero-sum game is a game and often played in an infinite theory, because there's only so many people in the US who can be customers, and Google and Apple keep going like this with how many phones they have. You can only sell so many phones. So it's a zero-sum game of how many phones they can sell, because there's only so many possible to sell. You know, because only so many, I can only hold 2 possible phones. So if you took everyone in the US with 2 hands, right, there's only 500 million phones that could be sold, not counting some breakage. So 600 million. It's a zero-sum game. Numbers aren't going to get bigger than that in the US, and they're obviously international for the same approach. That's really the difference of finite versus zero-sum. Zero-sum is more often played in an infinite theory, although it's also true in finite. So did that make sense to you? That's kind of a odd question, but it's a good one. Anyone else have any questions, thoughts, random ideas you want to know about? Or just want to tell me to piss off? Also fine. Just cause slide? Sure. Let me see if I can, where's my, I probably should have named all of my slides. Here we go. How good they do. There's a couple of them here that kind of apply to that. So on the just cause, let me see if I can make it back to the big screen. There we go. A just cause needs to be for something. Okay, it's got to have, it's a reason, right? It's positive for everybody. It's very optimistically approached. It's on a good goal. It's got to have a reason that people can get behind. It's got to be inclusive. Everybody's got to be able to contribute to that just cause. I believe it's got to be very service oriented. How is someone else going to benefit from this? You know, is it helping them save money? Buy this product, we're going to save you money. Is it buy this phone because you now have service and available to the world? Upgrade to this new phone because everything can happen faster. I'm going to save you time. Is it service oriented? It's a just cause. You know, is it resilient? Is it able to endure the test of time and consistently keep going? Is it idealistic, right? Big, bold, and ultimately unachievable. I'll put the second slide of that because this is the easiest way to simplify that sentence. A just cause is a vision of the future, and it is where you aim. So, hope that's it. I'll drop it back to the previous one because they're good. If you read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, he talks about this in words that make a lot of sense. Like a lot of those things in that book and a number of very similar books, I've been believing my whole life. And in some case, it's hard to put words to my approaches to things. Like that's my downside. I'm obviously ADHD for those who haven't figured that out. That's why I have 2 cups of coffee and Mountain Dew here in case I need it. It keeps me calm. He'll get into a lot of these in words that make a lot of sense. It's a great one. There's a couple of other books that kind of inspired him to write that book that he mentions in there as well. Absolutely worth reading, highly recommended to anyone who wants to do it. So Dustin asked, what was my last existential flexibility? To answer that question, I'm going to pull up one of these slides as soon as I figure out where the slide browser. I guess I just have to go do it this way. There it is. Next one. Okay. So this is also for you, Zara. There's the book and the author's name if you want to go track it down. He's also a fantastic speaker. If you want to see him on LinkedIn, go follow him. Another one I really enjoy is Gary Vaynerchuk. They've got a lot of nuggets. Like I don't believe in everything either one of them says, but they have a lot of nuggets, and the nuggets I like. You know, I read a book for that one nugget. Yeah, David, I'll go through that in just a sec. So Dustin, what was my last existential flexibility? It's kind of a hard question because it's it's a process a lot of times, you know, like right now in the current job, I have to initiate a disruption. I'm literally in the middle of this now because I need to change some of the process because some of the leadership doesn't feel the same approach to some of these things, or I think some stuff's getting on the wrong direction and I need to re-steer it, maybe kill off a product or change off some things and keep it on that right track. So part of that just cause of becoming where we are as a company, and I won't go into my company's just cause here, different scenario, requires us to change things. because some of the approaches we've taken, if I look at the last 6 months of work I've been doing and probably the next 4 or 5 to get it on the right track again, I've had to reset a lot of mentalities and a lot of goals in little tiny bits. I've reorganized teams to change leadership structures, to change like the projects they're working on, to change the work effort they're doing on, because we were trying to take big hairy goals that weren't gonna happen. And I broke them down into little pieces and broke them back into groups and gave people ways to do it and then changed their vision on it. So I had to change lots of little things, and it was painful. It's still painful. But we're in the middle of trying to change the approach we're getting to so that we become a more badass team, so that we become on a better track as a group. It's been rough. It's been hard. It is hard to change minds, and I'm just every little bit. I know I'm on track. I know this is the right approach. It's frustrating me. I'm probably more stressed about it than all of my team. But we're on the right track. We're doing the right things. We're figuring out those right things. And another part of that we've been working on is trying to how to communicate the words of those things to everyone else and make sure they're believing it, which some people don't get it, right? It's you got to build it up. You got to build it up. I can't explain it to everybody at once. It's little by little, right? We all got to do it. Everybody can't, there's not enough hours in the day to talk to them all, right? So we got to do little pieces. Those are the kind of things that like I'm in the middle of now. This is my life, right? This has been my life for 25 years, as long as I can remember, since I was 19. Do the math, it means I'm 44. Trying to get to the right approach is not a what can be fixed today. It's what am I going to fix in 6 months? What am I going to fix in a year? Is that putting it on the track for 5 years? So literally, this is all the time. So David asked, sounds like long-term thinking is synonymous with building systems to meet your large goals. That is very true. The long-term thinking, that infinite game, being understanding those kind of things. For example, building, I'm going to use, I work in IT development side of the house. You know, that's where I've just been. That's where we are as a company, is we have to build systems all the time. I could write one big, we call it a monolithic app. I could put it all in one big program to meet the large goal, right? And it's going to take us 2 years to build. I could do that, right? And in 2 years, this thing will work. Alternatively, if I need to make any changes in 2 years or anything has changed in the world, that app will have to get rewritten. It's a horrible approach. So understanding that, my large goals, this 2-year thing, I need to have this program running in 2 years, whatever. If I build it, for example, in a microservice architecture, you've got companies like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and kind of all of those companies, Google, Microsoft. We're building them in microservice where it's not we're all building this big app. It's we're going to build these 300 small apps that work together. And now it changes one little piece. If the whole industry changes, I just write a new plugin. I write a new module. I write a new microservice. So either way, I still met my goal of have this thing running in 2 years. But 2 years in a day, when something changed, I can change it in a day. I don't have to go recompile and redeploy the whole thing to somebody. So that's the infinite game. I know these things are always going to change. I will never have a finished product. Knowing I will never have a finished product, I can't do it in a single piece of code. I can't do it in a single application. We've got to architect the system to build the right system so that the system can be replaced one little bit at a time, one little bit at a time. If every month after that I replaced one little module of that whole thing, then I'm always on this new game of building it. Software gets better all the time. I know there's better code. I know the code I wrote 6 months ago is not as good as the code I wrote today. Therefore, my code 6 months ago sucks. So the long-term thinking and building systems to meet long goals is very true. I look at it in a different theory than those words, David, but you're not wrong. But I look at it in the word of understanding. It's part of that game, and it's going to have to change. And I have to think of the long term to build the system to understand the piece I have to do today. If you think about it in a project management standpoint, right? In a project management, there's something known as Scrum. We know the project, we go get scope. From scope, we break it down. From breaking it down, we understand pieces, and now everybody has the work for the week, right? And we know this goal, that we all also know that goal will change and it'll move a couple of times until you can get done. But even when it's done, it's not done. There's always add-ons and features, and it's an ever-going thing. But breaking down, knowing this end goal is not what I have to work on today. What I have to work on today, I broke down. And I know that what I'm working on today is part of that end goal because it's part of the project plan. That to me is a way of looking at it, except the project plan changes every day, right? And as long as the pieces still fit in, it's working. If your piece you're working on doesn't fit in the plan, you kill it off and you put a new piece, pick up the next one in the track. And being able to do that consciously and not get depressed with throwing your old code away. Oh, this task isn't needed anymore. You change the scope. Cool. Next, give me another one. Give me another one. I'm going to try and get that thing, right? We're just going to keep it going. Little tiny pieces, bite-sized pieces, consistently. So good. All right. Now I'm actually getting close in time. I've got about 5 more minutes, if maybe 8 minutes, if someone has anything else they want to chat. And if not, that's totally cool. I've had 5 cups of coffee this morning, so I could probably end up taking a leak at some point. If you want to discuss, argue, reach out, have interesting conversations, there's my email, there's my Facebook link. You can find me on LinkedIn. Kind of pick a social world, you'll find me out there. And something that I've tended to always believe when I talk about these things is, to me, as part of this, part of my approach is the reason why I do these kind of speakings, the reason why I talk about topics and unique things and trying to help people get better is it's my way of paying it forward. Someone helped me understand some principles that set me on a direction early, and the best I can do in my life is to hope steer a couple of you down the same path that hopefully ends up you succeeding in your game. So thank you much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of Code PaLOusa, and we will talk to you soon.